Hey folks, we're on a drive this morning from Hoi An back to Nha Trang. This has been part of a long Tet vacation trip from Ho Chi Minh City all the way up to Hue and then back again. Wife's driving this morning. We just got off the CT01, which is the national expressway here in Vietnam. One of the few roads that allows you to drive up to 120 kilometers an hour. She turned to me and she said, "I like this car." Meaning she liked the power of the car, the stability, having sent signals in the past that, you know, maybe it's a good idea to sell this car given that I'm not using this car every day to go to work anymore. Now I take the expressway. But I think after these long trips, you really do appreciate the room, the power that the S40 gives to you. So I got this car right after COVID finish, and there was the general car shortage in the market. My first choice was the C206, which is the C-Class, the new C-Class, but the waiting time for that was actually longer than this. I'm also an avid cyclist, so I like to travel away from the city and cycle, so having the option of having a big car like this and being able to put two bicycles in the back was an attractive option. So I pounced on the opportunity. After 3 years, I have no regrets about, you know, spending that extra money, getting that 6-cylinder car, getting that bigger room. So here we go on a more thorough assessment. This video is split up into 3 parts. The first part is issues that I have with this car, not necessarily faults of Mercedes Germany. Some of it is faults of Mercedes Vietnam, so you can't exactly blame the main manufacturer for some of these issues. Then I will go to the negatives for this car, and then I'll go for the positive, and finally a conclusion. So features of the car, but before that, taking the view, folks. We're at the Grand Melia in Nha Trang. Ocean view, fantastic, isn't it, folks? So back to the car. It is the S-450 Luxury V1 model. So it includes 4-wheel steering, and might I say, folks, 4-wheel steering is worth every dollar that you pay for it. It is a lifesaver, especially if you live in an apartment complex and you're parking underneath the apartment complex. Those tight turns with the 4-wheel steering really make a difference. It comes with head-up display unit. The head-up display unit is not as big as what you find in the overseas models. It's a kind of like a miniaturized version for Vietnam, which is again disappointing with the way they fleece you on these features. My car is a German-made model, so it does not come standard with 4MATIC, whereas the Thai-built model of the S-450 does come with 4MATIC. So go figure, guys, another quirk for Vietnam. So the car comes in at 2,000 kilograms. There's extensive use of aluminium, but the aluminium, or they strayed away from making an all-aluminium car like the D3A8 model. And folks, chime in on the comments for the reasons why they did this, but according to my understanding, it's because an all-aluminium chassis has acoustic problems, because sound waves resonates through the chassis more easily than these modern chassis that are a combination of steel and composite. So chime in if I'm right. So the engine that comes with the car is an M256 straight 6 3-litre engine. This is a departure from Mercedes' previous approach, which was a V6. They thought that the straight 6 has better engine dynamics, so they went that route. It's a mild hybrid system, and it's also a more comprehensive approach to mild hybrid in that the electric motor is built into the engine, so it's spinning via gears rather than via belts. So that's a very modern approach. And as I mentioned, the car was purchased directly after COVID, during the time where there was a chip shortage in the market. So even though you can see cameras on the windscreen, it does not have the video recording function, so I need to buy an aftermarket solution for video recording features. So the issues section is quite a long section. As I mentioned, not all of it is at the fault of Mercedes Germany. Some of it is very Vietnam specific. So this car I've actually treated with kid gloves. I've changed the oil every 8,000 kilometers. I've changed the engine air filter twice, even though it's not part of the regular maintenance schedule for Mercedes Vietnam. And that's curious because these road conditions are very dusty in Vietnam, and every time I've changed the air filter, it is putridly dirty. So yeah, I think that's something you should do if you own this car and you drive it in Vietnam. So the first issue is actually related to the MBUX system. I've only experienced glitches twice in the 3 years that I've owned this car, and it actually happened just a few days ago. So we turned on the car. Mechanical issues of the car is not affected by this glitch, so car turns on normally, temperature gauges works normally, but when you try to scroll through the upper section of the screen, it's locked. And although Apple CarPlay does connect with the car and you get music, you do not get navigation. And given that we were in a strange place in this trip, that was quite frustrating because we couldn't exactly, finding our way home was an issue. The second issue is creaks in the dashboard, and which is something you wouldn't expect with an S-Class. So maybe the quality of the S-Class is not what it was, say, 50 years ago. So when I first got this car, there were slight creaks in the dashboard, very, very so slight, and it actually moved between different areas, but now it's actually disappeared, which is good. Again, you would not want to take apart this dashboard, so the fact that it disappeared is a good thing. So another issue with this car is the aircon coolant at one stage had a leak. So about 1.5 years into owning this car, driving it, the air conditioner just suddenly stopped being cool, and I took it into the dealer. They opened up the boots and they had a visual check of all the piping that is in the engine area to look for leaks, but they could not find any leaks. So they said that if there is an issue, it must be behind the dashboard. And I thought, no, there's no way I'm going to take apart this dashboard. So I thought I'm just going to live with the issue. We were once driving to Cambodia, again the second time that issue emerged, so we had to stop in a garage to pump in new coolant, and then since that time we've pumped in one more time. Wasn't a significant pump, but since that time, in the last year, the issues actually faded away. So I don't know if this system has self-healing powers, but it seems like it is no longer an issue. So go figure. So Mercedes Vietnam's general approach to fixing things under warranties, they would try everything that is costless to them until they have no option but to bite the bullet and buy a part and replace it. The double whammy is I purchased this car from the Mercedes Vietnam Star dealership. There's another dealership called Mercedes Vietnam Hasaxco, and the two do not cooperate. So Hasaxco is actually only a few kilometers from my apartment, where Star is all the way in District 7. I live in Binh Thanh. That drive is not a short drive. So every time I have to haul this car to the dealership, it is one ordeal. So the problem that occurred with this car is that I went over a large pothole in District 7, which is notorious for having bad road conditions. After that big pothole, every time the car went over a large bump, the front left suspension would make a sound. So I took it into the dealership. And actually it took 3 trips. So first 2 trips they tried free things that didn't cost them anything. It didn't solve the problem. Third time they bit the bullet. They ordered a new control arm, suspension control arm, and they replaced that. But unfortunately, once I took the car away from the dealership, a new problem emerged, which was every time I did extreme turns on the steering, it would make a knocking noise. So again, it went back to the dealership. Unfortunately, the mechanic at that time couldn't recreate the problem, so I had to leave the office, which is in District 3, go back to District 7 and drive the car with the mechanic to recreate the problem. He heard it this time, and it turns out the reason why there was that knocking sound is that the crew that put together the control arm and reassembled the suspension did not use the correct torque settings. So go figure, Mercedes Vietnam, you should train your crew or much better, or have some sort of quality control procedure in place to catch these issues. Another issue is this car was not built to be surrounded by motorcycles on the road, especially motorcycles in Vietnam come very close to the car. So the active brake assist does not like this. You can see in the insert an example of how close motorcycles get to this car in city driving. The unfortunate thing is this car does not remember when you turn off active brake assist, and I think that's probably a safety precaution from Mercedes, that they don't want the system to be turned off on a permanent basis. But it means every time you start the car here in these Vietnam conditions, you have to remember to turn off that active brake assist. Otherwise, this car at low speed slams on the brakes when there's a motorcycle close by, especially coming up from the rear. And it's just through sheer luck that I have not had a motorcycle slam into the back of me. And then last issue is there are 4 USB-C ports in the front driving area, but they're not charging ports. They are data ports, it appears, because I can't get charge out of the 4 ports. There is wireless charging, but unfortunately it's not very powerful. So if you have Apple CarPlay running, you're probably drawing more of a charge out of the phone than you are charging it with the wireless charging facility. One more issue with this car is that it's quite low and long. So I've learned the hard way by driving over bumps that it does occasionally scrape the bottom of this car. So the way to avoid that is to go to the menu of the car, press this button here, and raise the vehicle level. You saw we just narrowly avoided an accident. So negatives of the S-450, in my opinion. First is this car is heavy. It comes in at a whopping 2,000 kilograms. This despite the extensive use of aluminium throughout the car. So some of the panels are made from aluminium, some parts of the chassis, obviously the engine is all aluminium, and there's no spare wheel, and it still comes in at 2,000 kilograms. So during the time where I was driving this car alone, that is a bit sort of wasteful, especially when you're lugging around, you know, the back chairs that have massage functions, 2 sunroofs. It is wasteful, but now that I only use this car for long vacation drives, I guess it's less wasteful. The second issue is this car is a complex car, a lot of software involved, and Mercedes Vietnam just needs to do a better job with software updates. In their philosophy is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So every time I go into the dealership and ask them, does this car need a software update? They say, oh, is anything wrong with the car? I said, no. And then I said, oh, then there's no point in doing a software update, which is not the way software update works, guys. So now for the positives of the S-450. We like the engine, adequate power, adequate braking. This car feels solid. Apart from the front suspension issue that I just mentioned, we've had no other mechanical issues with this car in the 3 years that we've owned it. The MBUX system, despite that rare glitch that I mentioned just previously, it is A good system because it's fast, information that you need is at your fingertips. Just ease of use is generally high in my opinion. I do shop in bulk sometimes, so having a large boot is really positive for just buying these bulk items at the supermarket. And also we like the cruise control system, especially with the police really cracking down on speeding lately in Vietnam. Setting the cruise control on, it's got the radar that measures the car in front. We turn on Viet Map, which sort of beeps at us when we go over the speed limit. It really does prevent you from getting entangled with the traffic police. So overall, what would I say about owning the S-450? Am I a happy customer? Yes, I am. Would I recommend this car? I would definitely recommend this car for Vietnam. Thanks.